know, science would tell you how that works.
Well, the last time I was out here, they had this cool little thing wrapped around it so it wouldn't do that, but they don't have that this time. So.
Huh. It's not in the drawer?
Maybe we don't need a mic.
Oh no, we need a mic.
Okay. I think there's definitely people that need a mic. I've never been accused of needing a mic.
Good, how are you?
So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to start with my current new favorite science facts. Overthrowing an authoritarian government takes approximately 3.5% of the population engaged in active and sustained resistance. Peaceful overthrow of an authoritarian government has a much higher rate of success than a violent one, and is less likely to fall into chaos or back into authoritarianism. In a peaceful resistance, everyone can participate, from protesting into the streets to disruptions in commerce. Erica Chenoweth, PhD, and Maria Stefan, then with the State Department, collected over 100 years of data on resistance to authoritarianism and found that nonviolent resistance is 2 times more likely to succeed, and in the last 50 years, nonviolent resistance has become more common and more successful. All this science leads me to say this and every pro-democracy, pro-science rally should remain peaceful. Do not engage with counter-protesters. It does not serve our cause. You cannot argue with a rock and get it to move. It wastes your time and your energy. We must focus on actions that serve science and democracy. Ignore those trying to incite you to violence. Violence only serves chaos and tyranny. Only through peace is science used for positive outcomes for people. Amen. Sorry about this wind, guys.
Just hold your hand up to it. Our first speaker. You do need one because the wind is making it so we can't hear you.
So, as a software engineer and in real life, she is an activist for science-based legislation who never seems to rest. As the organizer of this event, Phoebe has brought a passion for science and diversity to the table. Her relentless
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna plant a flag. I'm gonna make sure. I need your help to make sure it doesn't fall over.
Okay.
Theoretically, there. Just so you know, we have a camera right behind it. You don't have to move. I'm just letting you know. Can you make sure it doesn't fall
Yes.
over? Awesome.
Take some tea.
Hello. Why are we here? Why do we, as free individuals, care to talk about science right now? Surely there are more important things, right? No. While easily forgotten, I believe science sits squarely at the center of our battle for progress. Science has given us a great many social advancements. Medicine that allows us to live longer, happier lives, and fight back against global diseases and diseases of inequality. Technologies that allow people to travel the world and come in contact with other cultures with relative ease and safety, an idea unthinkable for an average person only 100 years ago. Electromagnetic signals that travel through air and metal allow almost anyone to share ideas and information faster than ever before. Automation that amplifies our individual abilities enable us to produce prosperity through abundances of food and goods and new ideas. These improvements are so ubiquitous, we take them for granted. This is just how life is now for many of us. But this progress wasn't inevitable. It has been produced by accumulating the deliberate labor of scientists over the course of thousands of years. These scientists openly sharing their results, reading each other's work, and looking for applications. And only then, raising up the lives and conditions of people everywhere. An outcome coming from constant, concerted effort by people who care deeply about understanding our world and then realize that their understanding can make the world a better place for everyone. This is not what the current administration wants. In an incredibly short time, they have acted to censor, diminish, and oppress the people and institutions in this country that have long pushed and promoted scientific research and driven its social awareness. Swaths of existing public scientific research have been removed for using already understood and established language. Regularly published public health reports have been stopped. Topics of new research are heavily restricted, and the approval process for scientific grant proposals is kept against a long list of 100 or so innocuous sounding but very difficult to avoid words such as bias, female, institutional, and trauma, greatly frustrating grant scientists across the country, allegedly in the name of stopping DEI.
Boo!
The Trump administration has wrongfully fired key scientists across federal agencies, illegally cut federal research funding, and severely capped and qualified federal grant funding in a way that threatens the continued operation of many scientific labs and college research programs across the country, which were already operating on tight margins. Finally, as if this wasn't enough, some of our country's highest performing scientists, who are black or female or queer, have been more greatly affected by this administration's actions, seemingly in the belief by those in charge that these groups are inherently less important or less capable, or less palatable.
Boo!
These beliefs are not new, and in the past they've been used to punish and suppress some of history's greatest scientific minds. Actions such as these willfully and maliciously disregard the unique talent and advancements that marginalized scientists have already brought and attempt to silence the struggles of these scientists in their cries for progress. Cries often born of seeing and experiencing inequality firsthand. A future for everyone cannot be built on the back of ever-escalating hatred and discrimination. We need everybody we can get, including our incredible marginalized scientists who are under attack more than ever. These developments are a grave insult to the progress that scientists have already fought for, all in the name of consolidating power. These new oligarchs and rulers don't want the people's lives to continue to improve. Rather, they want to hoard those improvements for themselves, ever more money and luxuries for the rich, while disease and inequality grow to acceptable levels. What do? We learn how to speak and how to gather together, and by doing these things, we teach one another. Even the most authoritarian government must respect the power of the people. And so we get active, and we continue to teach each other how to resist until our resistance must be respected. Together, our communities can build the culture of protest we need. All this because our futures matter, and we need to learn to use our voices to push for the progress all people deserve. Now is the time to stand up.
Our first speaker is Ann Hedges. She is the... Oh, Kevin Hand. That's right. I'm so sorry. Kevin. Sorry, Kev.
The role of Anne will be played by Kevin.
I'm sure you've done a fabulous job. CEO of Treasure State Internet and president of Montana Pride, Kevin Hand.
Hello, everyone. How many of you believe in science? No. You don't believe in science. You understand science. You can read science. You can replicate science. So you know it's true. Right? When it comes to science, there's no reason to go, well, I believe in it. You go, here's the paper, learn to read. Now, I understand that that's hard for some of the people in this building because they've got an education of a snail going uphill in the winter. They are so slow, they're backwards. And that's the thing. But we can help them. We can reach out to them and say, this is the alphabet. And you start with A. And A stands for a goddamn science lesson! Look, as we're going through life, today you should have gotten an alert on your phone that said, hey, NOAA and the National Weather Service says there's going to be a high wind warning starting at 11:55 for Helena, Montana, because people are rallying at the Capitol. Now that's both science and magic, but it is mostly science. And it's important we get those things because, hey, if it's a tornado warning or if it's a hurricane coming in and we don't have those warnings, what can we do? Prepare. It becomes real hard to plan your life when you don't know what's coming next. And if you don't do the science, you can't figure that out. Is it exact? No, science is not exact. For example, Boeing. Do you know that in 2025, we still do not know how planes fly? We can calculate lift. We know the basic ideas of it, but we still don't know the actual mechanism that makes it work. And Boeing keeps failing at that more spectacularly every day. And it's because this administration does not believe in science. And science is critical, and it affects and goes through every part of our life, from how our houses stand up to the wind, to how our water gets cleaned, to how our grass grows, to how our cars work, whether they're electric or internal combustion or have rodents on wheels, whatever it is, it's all still science. And if you don't learn it, you can't advance. And if we don't advance, we're going to fall back. And so we can have JD Vance or we can advance. Which do you choose? Advance over JD Vance. Good on you. Okay, so here's the thing. They're going to attack everything and they're going to say, oh, we're protecting somebody else. They're attacking vaccines, but they say they're protecting children. No, they're not. They're killing children.
Yep.
They're attacking the queer community and they say they're protecting women, but they're actually attacking women.
Yep.
They couch their language because that's the one study they've done, is how to talk to people to manipulate them. That is a science as well. That's the only one they excel at. It's one we don't study because we think it's evil, because it's fucking evil. So, they're going to do that. We need to be aware of it when they go, oh, well, we're doing this to protect someone. That is actually the group they are attacking. That is the group they are trying to take out, to make less than, to give less power to, so they can consolidate power in themselves. So when you do that, you go, I'm going to look at this from a scientific perspective and say, oh, but if you do those things, all these other things are going to happen, which hurt people. And you're going to say, no, we're not going to let you do that. Whether it's attack on queer people, whether it's an attack on kids, whether it's an attack on old people, whether it's an attack on your social security, we're going to make it more efficient by deleting a database. That is the digital equivalent of burning books, by the way, in case you're wondering. So when they delete those things, that's just literally a bonfire on the internet. And we need to call them out on it. We need to make sure that they don't do it. And if they're attacking you, you stand up and you get loud. You get loud! Scientific mind says there's someone screaming and that means somebody is hurt or needs help, right? Evidence, results, I'm going to do that. And that's what we do. So do we believe in science? No. No. Do we understand science?
Yes!
Do we support science?
Yes!
Are we going to stand together?
Yes!
And are we going to tell them where to go?
Yes!
And it's probably a place that doesn't exist scientifically, but I'm going to draw them a map anyway. Thank you, I've been Kevin Ham.
And now will the real Ann Hedges please come up? Executive Director of the Montana Environmental Information Center. I'm assuming you got a few things to say today.
You're good now?
Hi everyone, Ann Hedges. I see and thank you for coming out today to defend what we all know is the truth. I just want to say that scientists drive me crazy. And I know that doesn't sound right, but that's because they're so cautious. Scientists do not come forward with a conclusion until they have gathered reams and reams and years worth of data. You know, when Rachel Carson in 1962 wrote about Silent Spring, wrote about DDT and the effects of DDT on the wildlife and the planet, do you know that it took a decade to actually ban DDT in the United States? Because the scientists mocked her. They said, that can't be true. We need to replicate all of your science. And it took them a decade to do that, and then to get the policymakers to actually do something about it. So science is a slow-moving process of collecting data, verifying data, making sure what you're saying is accurate. It took the international IPCC. It took the IPCC 15 to 20 years to admit that humans were the cause of our current climate crisis. That we were actually contributing. This isn't rocket science, but they all agree on it. It took them decades to come to that conclusion. They did that a long time ago. And yet we are still in these halls debating whether climate change is real or, worse, whether it's good for us. Yeah, climate change is good for us because it's going to give the plants more CO2. Ignore the droughts that it brings. Don't worry about that. But, you know, it boggles my mind in my years and decades up here. You know, we've had people deny science. It's happened. It's been happening forever. But then don't deny
arsenic's bad for us. We know that lead is bad for us. We know that mercury is bad for us. And why do we know that? Because science figured it out. It told us the quantities that are safe. And you know what happens every couple decades? Is we find out the science was wrong. And in fact, it's a lower amount of pollution that is going to harm us. We keep saying, uh-oh, we were wrong. Mercury is harmful at an even lower level than we anticipated. And these guys are going in the opposite direction. The federal level is going in the opposite direction. They may not know what a wet test is or a stack test is, but our scientists do. And they're out there measuring. They're out there figuring out whether our air and our water standards are protective of our kids and our health. We are better off today because of science. But yet we have, at the federal level, they want to eliminate the endangerment finding for greenhouse gases. They want to eliminate a finding that's been in effect for 15 years and said that greenhouse gases are harmful to human health. They're harmful because of all the things, the cascading effects that we have by putting too much CO2 and methane into our air. But this administration is now saying we're going to reverse course. We're going to go backwards and we're going to say that greenhouse gases are no longer harmful to our health. And the coal strip, boom! And so we're going to go back 20 years. And then you have the coal strip plant, which has the highest toxic emission rate in the nation. The very highest of any coal-fired power plant in the nation. We are talking arsenic and lead and other types of toxins. And this legislature is trying to convince the EPA to reverse course and not make coal strip cleanup act and install the same technologies as every other plant in the nation is already installed. Every similar plant has already put in the technology to control arsenic and lead. But these guys are saying, don't worry about it. They can't be that bad for you. Honest, that's what they're doing. And the EPA is probably going to try and do exactly that. Is try to reverse course and say that Montanans deserve dirtier air, less healthy air than everybody else in the country. And I say, no way. We are not going to stand by and let them do that without a fight. And we are going to fight because science matters. Science doesn't disappear based on political belief. Science matters, and it should be dictating how we protect our kids and future generations. We have a right to a clean, healthful environment for present and future generations. Let's make sure that we get that right. We get the rights we deserve. And the only way to do that is to show up and be counted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kim Popham is a former science teacher, director of public policy and research for the Montana Federation of Public Employees. She's our next speaker.
Hi everybody, I'm Kim Popham and I'm so grateful for the chance to be here today. Today I'm here as a 28-year veteran educator of earth science, life science, forensic science, biology, and AP biology. I'm here today as the Director of Public Policy and Research for Montana Federation of Public Employees, our state's largest union. We are a union of fish and wildlife biologists, a union of epidemiologists, a union of healthcare workers, and yes, a union of elementary, middle, and high school science teachers. World-class professors and graduate students teaching and researching. All of us reaching for more understanding, analytical thinking, and fact-based decision-making. My love of science was fostered young in Stevensville Public Schools. It grew during graduate school while working at the Thermal Biology Institute at Montana State University. Go Cats! There I got to work with amazing scientists studying extremophiles in Yellowstone National Park. I received a grant to conduct my own research in a proteomics lab, and then I connected other high school science teachers to grant funding for their own research opportunities. That's what scientists do. We lift each other up, we lift our communities up, and we protect our state. Yeah. on to invent vaccines for hepatitis B, measles, mumps and rubella, and meningitis. 8 billion lives a year are saved because of his work. And just yesterday, it looks like one life in New Mexico could have been saved by his work as well. That's where we are, a fundamental moment where we have to choose between science and science fiction. Montana science teachers and professors work tirelessly to help us truly understand the scientific process. We teach our students to develop testable questions and then investigate those questions in order to draw evidence-based conclusions. We do this despite the fact that there are special interests who say climate change isn't happening. Yeah, boo is right. And that we shouldn't be teaching our students about evolution. Even bigger boo. But we say no. We will continue to teach our students what science really is and how to analyze evidence so that we can develop the next generation of Dr. Hillmans or Jane Goodalls or Rosalind Franklins. We need them now more than ever. We must reject attempts to cut university research funding, reject attempts to siphon scarce public dollars from our public schools to unaccountable, unaccredited voucher schemes.
Yep.
Reject the attempts to manage our precious natural resources by gut decisions instead of scientific process. From our hospitals to our farms and ranches, from our wild places to our power grid and infrastructure, from our schools to our universities, science underlines Montana, the last best place. Today and every day we stand for science. Thank you. Our next speaker is an electrical engineer who moved to Montana and fell in love with Helena and is doing her part to help save us from this catastrophe. Natalie Salazar. Hi everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? There we are. A little nervous, but I had to say something. I'm here, don't worry.
If you
Just a warning, this is anecdotal. Pure warning, there is death in my speech, so I just wanted to be a little sensitive to that. Alright. How's this? Alright. When I asked my dad if he was a feminist, he said no. This shocked me. This shocked me because for the 22 years before this moment, when I was 22, 23, he had always encouraged me to chase my dreams above all else, to exert my independence as a woman, and to never underestimate my value in the world. It was clear that he didn't know what feminism was about because he had indoctrinated me with feminist ideology without even knowing it. With my father's full support, I earned my degree in electrical engineering from the University of Washington. This is a big moment for me. I did it for myself. But I won't lie and say that it wasn't in small part to make my dad proud. My dad was Mexican American, and earning my degree as a Latina was defying odds. I lost my father in June of 2021, holding his hand after being granted permission to see him by a hospital board because I was just barely vaccinated for COVID. I watched as his lungs struggled without a ventilator until they could not anymore, and his heartbeat first became irregular and then finally flatlined. My last words with him, with my dad, were, "I love you," over an iPad call provided by hospital staff. He was an emergency worker during the pandemic, helping water treatment and food processing plants implement essential equipment to maintain their output during a critical time for so many families across the U.S. He also prescribed to the rhetoric and false skepticism around vaccine safety that were rampant at the time. My dad was one of the first groups of people to have access to vaccinations during the pandemic, and yet he did not get vaccinated, despite my and my family's pleas. On his deathbed in this hospital, he admitted that he regretted not getting vaccinated. As an engineer, a discipline that is fundamentally built on the backs of brilliant physicists, mathematicians, chemists, and more, I understand how much thought, dedication, review, rejection, and revision goes into each physical understanding that we now have as a people, let alone as a species. It is an insult to the basis of our society's advancements to undermine the most intelligent and well-educated people in our nation. But in times of uncertainty, people will often cling to something they understand and begin to distrust that which they don't. Our current administration feeds off of this habit. We have to work against it. We cannot let them win. We have to remind our fellow country people that science is what brought us this far, and that it is what will keep us advancing. We need to remind ourselves and those around us that having trust in science is having optimism for our future. My father regretted in his last days that he did not trust more in the COVID-19 vaccines that our scientific community provided. They labored night after night, day after day, for weeks, months to get that out to us. I hope we don't regret trusting our scientific community now. Thank you.
Next up, we have a local professor, Dr. Carolyn Farr. Did she make it? Maybe not. Okay. Then Melanie, our local environmental scientist, has provided a speech just in case Carolyn couldn't make it. So we're very lucky to have her. Thank you, Melanie.
All right. Hello, everyone. Wow, look at all these beautiful political activists. So, my name is Melanie, and I'm the scientist, public lands advocate, and until recently, a USDA Forest Service employee. Thanks, Doge. Thanks. I have dedicated my life to protecting public lands and studying environmental science. Today, though, I speak to you as simply another concerned citizen. I am here because science is under attack. Not just data, but the future of our communities, our environment, and our ability to respond to crisis. Science is the foundation of progress. It helps us understand the world, solve problems, protect communities, and build a better future. Science is not partisan. It is not an opinion. It is a process, one based on evidence, research, and facts. But today, science is being deliberately undermined. When facts become inconvenient for those in power, they erase them. They silence experts, remove critical data, and distort reality for political or financial gain, sometimes and often both. One of the most alarming examples of suppression of science is the current suppression of climate science, which puts entire communities, ecosystems, and economies at risk. For decades, scientists, land managers, and public servants have worked tirelessly to understand and respond to climate change. And the evidence is overwhelming. Climate change is real, and human activity is driving it. Yes! We see it in record-breaking wildfires, historic droughts, rising sea levels, and extreme weather. scientific data from agencies like the USDA, NSF, NOAA, NASA, and the EPA. Yet, instead of taking action, the government is erasing the data that proves the problem exists. Climate science is not just numbers on a page. It guides policies that affect every American. The USDA tracks climate data because it impacts food security, wildfire risk, water resources, and rural economics. When the USDA deletes climate research, farmers lose critical information about growing seasons, water availability, and soil health. When the Forest Service is blocked from discussing climate science, valuable tools to predict and mitigate wildfires are lost. When federal agencies are silenced, preparing for extreme weather, protecting endangered species, and safeguarding public lands becomes harder. Let's be clear. Climate change does not care about politics. It will not stop because someone deletes a web page or removes a report. But the people that rely on this information, farmers, firefighters, scientists, disaster response teams, conservationists, will suffer the consequences. The public will suffer the consequences. Deleting data is not just irresponsible, it's dangerous. Suppressing climate science makes our country less prepared for crisis, less prepared for droughts, less prepared for stronger hurricanes, less prepared for destructive wildfires. Erasing climate data is not just an attack on science, it's an attack on public safety. Imagine a doctor diagnosing a deadly disease, one that could be treated and caught early. But instead of warning the patient, they throw the test results in the trash and walk away. That is what erasing climate data is like. We know the problem exists. We know what's causing it, and we even have solutions. But instead of acting, decision makers are choosing ignorance. This is a betrayal of public trust, a betrayal of scientists, researchers, and public servants who dedicate their lives to understanding and solving the crisis. And it's a betrayal of every person who suffered the consequences of inaction. Science should serve the people, not politics. And this is not just happening at the USDA. Across the government, scientists are being silenced, experts are being fired, data is being deleted. Who benefits? Not the public, not the people that depend on the information, not you. This benefits the polluters, the fossil fuel executives, the industries that profit from destruction while passing the cost on to the rest of us. They know that if people don't have access to the truth, they can keep profiting while our forests burn, while our farmlands dry up, and while our communities suffer. We cannot let that happen. So what can we do? Speak up. Call your representatives. Demand that science remains accessible and protected. Support scientists. Those in agencies like the USDA, NSF, NOAA, EPA, they need our voices behind them. Push for policy that's based on facts. Climate action is not partisan, it's survival. And to federal employees, hold the line. We will not let them erase the truth. Science belongs to all of us. It is not up for debate. Climate change is real and it's happening now, and we will not be silent. Thank you.
So now we're going to go back and hear from our local professor, Dr. Carolyn Farr.
You know this is like a science-friendly
Pull the mic up.
when they cheer on an organic chemistry professor. That's how you know it's a friendly environment. So I'm here. Put your mouth right. Okay, I'm right here. I'm so loud. I'm not used to a microphone, but I'm going to do it. So I'm speaking today on behalf of myself. My name is Caroline. I'm a professor. I'm a scientist. I'm a mom, and I'm a concerned constituent, and that's why I'm here today it may not surprise you to know that I love science. That's my jam. It's like how I make all my decisions. If there's data for something, it's where I'm looking, right? If it's a parenting decision, looking at the data. People study that. If I'm going to make a big purchase, looking at the data. If I'm going to take a medication and I want to know about side effects, looking at the data. So this is such important information that we need to have access to. And one of the things that I love about science, maybe if I do this, is that it doesn't care who you are. Science doesn't care where you come from, what color your skin is, or whom you love. It doesn't care about any of that. Anyone can ask a good question and gain information. And everyone needs to be at the table when we ask those questions. If we're not including people from all different backgrounds, then we are missing opportunities for innovation, and we're missing the ability to address needs that we might not even see in our time slots. That's right. And I talk to my students all the time about the importance of having a diverse population of scientists and highlighting the work of diverse scientists and their impact on the things that we know and learn today. So a number of years ago, I taught a class called Energy Science, and it was a non-majors course, so they weren't science majors. And it was a really fun class. It was about how we use energy and the chemistry and the physics behind science. I didn't touch the physics part, but yes, there we go. But I did do the chemistry part. But probably in 15 years of teaching, one of my favorite things that has ever happened was from that course. I had a student who came to me about 2 months later, and she said, you know, I saw this thing online, and it was like some pill that you put in your gas tank, and it said it gave you better gas mileage, and I just thought it was kind of weird. And so I looked it up, and I found a reputable source, and it turns out it's BS. And I was like, yeah, it's BS. And this is the moment, right? Like, if we can help our community, our students, our kids, our parents, whoever it is, be scientifically literate, then we can advance quality science policy. And we can dispute misinformation that is rampant. X is not a good place to find quality science information. Facebook is not a good place to find quality science information. And people need to stop looking there, and they need to understand that this is important. Science is integral to all aspects of policy. If we think about how we address climate change, how we address medical advances and new technologies that allow for remote monitoring of medical applications for rural Montanans. Yeah. These are real things that impact all of us, and we cannot afford to let misinformation get the better of this situation. Okay, it just can't happen. So I'm here today to ask you all to be advocates for science, to promote scientific literacy, to contact your representatives, to organize your friends and family, to vote with your dollars, right? That matters. Because if I can convince a group of students that organic chemistry is actually a fun puzzle and not a terrible impediment to whatever they're trying to do next, then we as constituents can convince our representatives that science matters, that they need to represent us, and that we will not abide by cuts and misinformation and things that are going to take us backwards. Okay? I know that it's such a hard time right now. It is dispiriting and it's crushing. But that's what they want. They want us to give up, and we can't. Okay? So let's get out there. Let's keep making phone calls. Let's take a break for a minute when we need to, but don't give up. Okay? Organize your friends and family, and we can advocate for science, and we can push everything forward to make the world a better place for everybody.
So at this time, we've got a little bit of time. If anybody else would like to say anything before our last speech and wrap up, now is the time. Anybody? Any takers? Public speaking is scary. That's what they tell me. You really just have to not care whether you look like an idiot. It's not that hard. So, our last speaker was not able to make it today, but I have his speech. put out on YouTube. Everybody's favorite creator, Hank Green. Science has been under attack in various ways throughout my life. There's been conversations that threaten people's identities, their livelihoods, and I get that. Evolution, I get it. It freaks people out. It's weird to be related to everything else on Earth. Climate change, I get it. It freaks people out because it means that maybe you can't feel as good about your big truck or about your job in the fossil fuel industry. I get it. But right now, the most powerful people in America aren't coming after science because it threatens some people's ideology or their worldview or their livelihoods. They're coming after science because it threatens their power. I've never seen an attack on science like that. It is not one piece or another, it's everything. It's the institution. It's the organizations that do the fundamental research that progress is based on. I know a lot of people who work in science, and they are not chill about this. This is not chill. They are worried about our ability as a nation to continue fueling the progress that so many of us take for granted. I think this is an attack on the idea that some people have information that might contradict the desires of the select few who see themselves as the only legitimate powers. That's what I see this as. It's terrifying. Hate George Washington Carver, born enslaved, developed crop rotation, a farming method widely used to this day, and permaculture, also known as carbon capture. Alan Hart, his use of X-ray to diagnose tuberculosis was vital in the fight against the disease. He had a hysterectomy in 1917, becoming the first transgender U.S. man to undergo gender-affirming surgery. He was outed in 1918, including articles in newspapers, after which he moved to Huntley, Montana to set up practice. Charles Drew, a black man, was the creator of the blood bank and bloodmobile, which have saved countless lives. He was the first director of an American Red Cross blood bank, but quit after 2 years in protest of the segregation of blood by race. Alan Turing, known for code breaking in World War II, he is the father of modern computing. He was a gay man who, after the war, was tormented by his government until he committed suicide. Hedy Lamarr was an actress and inventor who pioneered the technology that would one day form the basis for today's Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth communication system. Her brilliant mind was often ignored and certainly downplayed in her time. Katherine Johnson, a black woman and one of many hidden figures in NASA, calculated the trajectories for multiple NASA missions. Her work and that of her colleagues only became common knowledge after Hollywood made a film about them. Gladys West, another black woman, created global positioning system. During her career, she was excluded from projects that would involve public appearances and recognition. Sally Ride, the first female astronaut in space, achieving this momentous goal after 2 decades of women training to be astronauts only to have funding removed and their male colleagues not support their ambitions. She was married to a fellow astronaut for 5 years before divorcing, following her heart to be in a 27-year relationship with the woman she had known since childhood. Lynn Conway is a trans woman who revolutionized the microchip industry and paved the way for smartphones. Transitioning in the 1950s, but recognizing she would not get hired as a trans woman, yet wanting to live as her true self, she had to pretend to not have computer skills and work her way up until she was hired by Xerox, where she developed the microchip. Science doesn't care if a discovery is made by a man or a woman, a black person or a white person, part of the LGBTQ community, confined to a wheelchair like astrophysicist Stephen Hawking, or an NFL player and aerospace engineer like Josh Dobbs. Science, by its very nature, thrives with diversity. Unfortunately, due to the bigotry of their times, we will never know if these scientists could have achieved more with better funding, more support, and less harassment. And under this administration, many scientists of today will never have the opportunity to achieve their full potential for the same reason. Petty tyrants are never the hero in history. Small-minded bigots who try to erase the accomplishments of those who advance science and learning are always the villain of the story. So we get to choose. Right now, today, do we allow the same mistakes the United States made in the past to continue? Do we allow this administration to control what we are allowed to study and learn? Or do we insist our representatives stop bending the knee and fight for us? It is time they stand up for science. Let's hold them accountable by writing, emailing, calling, going to their offices to demand science is given priority in every decision that they make. And I will say that every grain of sand, each one of those things, every grain of sand that you throw in their gears to slow them down from what they're trying to do, it's worth it. You're not wasting your time, you're wasting theirs. So get after it.